Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 6th edition of Talkdeath, Canadian Funeral Law with Nathan Romagnoli and Janet McCausland. Hi, Nathan.
Hello, everybody.
And hi, Janet.
Hello.
But what do you think is the biggest stopping block for more green burial spaces in Canada?
Yeah, Janet, what have you seen to be some of the most difficult hurdles?
I've experienced this firsthand in terms of, and the issue is zoning. So to be zoned, a cemetery, the reason why you can't bury someone in your backyard is you need to bury someone who in an area that is zoned cemetery. So it can either be an open space or industrial. So, and also within the Greater Toronto Area, there are so many areas like the Greenbelt and the Moraine and all these things that are protected areas that they will not allow an industrial space on. So, while our argument is that, a green cemetery will be preserving space, but under the law, a cemetery has to be in an industrial area because it has a parking lot, because it has, services that come around the cemetery, not just the burials. So we had, and these townships, the cemetery that we were looking at was in the King Township, and they have town planning that go 10 and 15 years. So to change the plan is you need really deep pockets. You need, you need a long-term vision, and so that's why the cemeteries so far, except the one in BC, have been it's existing cemetery land already. And then you add a burial, natural burial around it.
It seems like that might be the biggest stumbling block for Quebec, for example, where you have these sort of institutional, jurisdictional issues that's causing friction between the funeral profession and consumers. Let's say that might be a stumbling block for green burial, and the insistence that a cemetery has to have a parking lot, it has to have certain elements that will then be missing from potentially from a green burial space.
Yeah. Well, and in terms of the sites, the sites all need to, if you wanted to start up your own cemetery, it needs to be approved by the Minister of Health. It needs, there are all the different things that you need, but first and foremost is the zoning.
Okay, interesting. And I know that a lot of places have succeeded, or a lot of provinces, or mostly states actually, have succeeded in having green cemetery spaces, but they're within a regular cemetery. So I think a lot of that is basically from consumer requests saying, going straight to the cemeterians and saying, we want a green space. And then they're just taking, their regular land that they might put vaults in and make them green. But it's sort of, that fine line between, it is a green cemetery space in that, there's no embalming fluid and there's no vaults, but some people want, to actually be in a reserve, in a forested area, somewhere that, isn't your typical cemetery space. So that's the tough part, I think.
Mm-hmm. There is truly a big difference between the discussion around natural versus green burial also, or green and natural cemeteries. So, people always speak of the shades of green and such, and this does definitely come into this realm as well. So the existing areas in some of the more corporate cemeteries are certainly natural in elements, but do have pretty strict limitations with respect to how green their burials can actually be. So, for example, the majority of them do require the use of what's called a lowering device, which is really a man-made structure that would go over an open hole that allows for a body or a casket, for that matter, to be lowered, which in certain capacities takes away from elements of the green nature. Some of the natural burial grounds also will continue to use a backhoe, for example, to dig the earth, as opposed to one thinking that you might be able to dig the grave yourself, even by a shovel. So it is quite variable, and certainly a big difference between the element of conservation type burial and natural or green.